All right, let's talk about something you see literally everywhere, line graphs. But forget thinking about them as just a math problem. We're going to learn how to read them for what they really are, which are basically powerful stories just waiting for someone to tell them. So, think about it. How can a simple, jagged line on a chart possibly tell a story with ups and downs and maybe even a little drama? Well, that's the big question we're going to tackle. And trust me, by the end of this, you're going to start seeing these stories everywhere.
But hey, before we can read the story, we've got to learn the language, right? So let's start with the absolute basics. What exactly are we even looking at when we see one of these things?
Okay, so at its heart, a broken line graph is really simple. It's just a bunch of dots, or points, that each represent a single piece of information. And then we connect those dots with lines. The real magic, though, is what it shows us. It reveals how something changes over a period of time. Every single line graph is built on this simple skeleton. You've got the horizontal line at the bottom, that's the x-axis, and that's almost always our timeline. Think days, months, years. Then, running up the side, you have the vertical y-axis. That measures the what. You know, the temperature, the sales numbers, how many steps you took. So time flows left to right, and the value goes up or down. Easy as that. All right, so we've got the language down. Now it's time to actually start reading the data and pulling out the cold, hard facts from the graph itself. Let's use a super simple example. Let's say we're tracking the number of books someone read over a week. If you look at it in a table like this, well, it's just a list of numbers. It's kind of boring. But the second we turn these points into a line graph, a story starts to take shape. Okay, so looking at that data as a line, where do you see the steepest climb? I mean, what's the biggest jump from one day to the next? The line itself just gives you the answer visually. You don't even have to do the math. And boom, there it is. The biggest leap was that jump of 2 whole books between Monday and Tuesday. The steepness of that line just screams it at you. Now for a different question. Instead of looking at the change between days, let's just find the peak. Forget the journey for a second. Where's the highest point on this whole graph? What was the absolute best day of this reading week? Super easy to spot, right? Friday is clearly the highest point on the map, with 6 books. So you see, we can spot both the journey, the changes, and the destinations, or the peaks, with just a quick glance. So this is really the first skill you need to master, just reading the graph to see the trends. You're just looking for where the story goes up, where it dips down, and maybe where it just kind of flatlines for a bit. It's the basic plot summary. But you know, a good story is so much more than just a list of plot points. It has meaning. It has a why. So now, we're going to move from just reading the facts to actually interpreting the story behind them. Let's grab a new set of data, glasses of water you drink per day. The line would show this nice, steady climb until Wednesday, and then a sudden drop on Thursday before it starts to pick back up. The numbers tell us what happened, but the real question is, what does it all mean? This is the fun part. This is where we get to be detectives. The data shows a drop. Our job is to ask, what actually happened in the real world on Thursday? Why did our story take this sudden turn? See, the graph points you to the question. Was Thursday just a crazy busy day at work? Did you just forget? Or, hey, maybe the weather got cooler, so you weren't as thirsty. The line itself doesn't give you the answer, but it tells you exactly where to start looking for the real story. And that's the big takeaway here. The numbers tell you what happened, but the story is in the why. Making that connection between the data and real life, that's how you truly understand what you're looking at. So, a single line can tell one person's story. But what happens when you put 2 stories on the same page? Well, that's the next level, comparing 2 different journeys on the exact same graph. Okay, so here we're tracking the daily steps for 2 people, Maya and Jay. We've got their raw numbers for each day of the week. And yeah, looking at this table is fine, I guess, but it's really hard to see any kind of pattern or story, isn't it? But now imagine those 2 sets of data as 2 different colored lines on one graph. Just by looking at the shape of those lines, whose journey seems more, more dramatic? Who has the bigger swings, the higher peaks and the lower valleys? And that's the power of a visual. You can see it instantly without even thinking. Maya's line is way more jagged, it's all over the place, which shows these big swings in her daily step count. Jay's line is a little more consistent, a little smoother. That's a whole comparative story told in a single glance. And what about those cool moments where the two lines actually cross each other? That's a key plot point in our story. When lines intersect, it means that on that specific day, their step counts were either exactly the same or super, super close. It's this moment of equality in their two totally separate journeys.
Okay, we've learned how to read the facts, how to interpret the meaning, and how to compare different stories. Now there's really only one thing left to do. It's time for you to create your own. And the process is really simple. First, just pick something you want to track. Could be your steps, your hours of sleep, your screen time, whatever. Then, just log the data for 5 days. After that, draw your axes, plot your points, and connect them with a line. But this final step is the most important one. Look at the line you just created and try to write one single sentence that tells its story.
So, here it is, your final challenge. Let's say you tracked how many minutes you studied math. 20 on Monday, 35 on Tuesday, a dip to 25 on Wednesday, up to 40 on Thursday, and then 30 on Friday. I want you to plot that out. What does the line tell you? What's the trend? And most importantly, what real-life reasons could explain the story that your graph is telling? You've got all the tools now. Go find the story.